I didn't really consent to this. This is just
You said okay to helping me. Alright? Do my girl a solid here. Alright, so do you know what sickle cell anemia is or what the sickle cell trait is?
Not really.
I know it's a disease in which red blood cells are misshapen and they're shaping more like a sickle rather than a general oval.
When you have the gene for it, it creates like basically sickled cells that look like this.
Can I get a hint?
I believe it causes the blood to not carry as much oxygen throughout the body.
The T cells or the sickle cells, basically they can catch and then they cause blood clots in arteries. There's a positive side effect of it though too, which is you're more resistant to malaria if you have sickle cell anemia, I believe.
It's a misshaping of certain blood cells in order to prevent them from being infected. However, it causes like pain.
Can I phone a friend?
I really don't know.
Sickle cell anemia, it's when your erythrocytes are like misshapen and so they can't carry oxygen correctly, I think.
Do you know how the sickle cell trait affects the athletic community?
I would think it would make your blood thinner and make you more lightheaded and stuff when you're doing very intense exercises.
Body is incapable of carrying as much oxygen, then that's going to inhibit an athlete's ability to perform to the best of their ability.
Some athletes have sickle cell anemia. And some athletes don't.
I know you have to get tested for it. I'm assuming it creates some sort of danger.
But did you take a sickle cell trait test before arriving at Cornell?
I think I did, yes, and it was negative.
I did. Everyone is required to.
Yes, I did.
I did.
I think so. Yeah.
I believe so, yes.
No.
Yes. So what are your opinions on this mandatory testing?
I mean, it didn't really affect me at all. I just did it.
Well, I don't remember it. I don't have an opinion.
If I would guess that it affects somebody's athletic performance and or it can cause some form of liability for the school if someone's identified with it.
I think it's good.
Yeah, it'd be nice to know if you had that disease so you could treat it so you're not fatigued when you exercise.
I think if there is a risk of death, then yeah, it's probably good that most people get tested for it. I don't really see how that's a question.
I honestly don't see the necessity behind it, I guess, because it's never really been something that has personally affected me.
I feel like it would be an important thing to know so that you can accommodate if someone has this disease. I don't think that people should be not allowed to participate in sports if they have sickle cell anemia.
I don't mind it at all, really. I'd like to know if I have it.
I will tell you all of the answers and then I'm going to tell you some fun facts and then you will react to those fun facts.
I'm going to react to the fun fact?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, sickle cell anemia is a genetically inherited disease that requires 2 copies of the recessive gene to fully manifest in the body. These people have crescent-shaped blood cells that make it more difficult for their red blood cells to carry oxygen to the body, which can lead to sudden death. Those with the sickle cell trait or 1 copy of the recessive gene may not have anemia, but under certain conditions, like under strenuous activity, the blood cells may actually sickle and cause a deprivation of oxygen to the body. So, as a little history, in the past decade, 15 NCAA athletes, namely college football players, have died because they were carriers of the sickle cell trait. So just in 2002, a 14-year-old female track athlete in Dallas actually died after running laps in August. Approximately 8% of all African Americans are carriers of the sickle cell trait, specifically targeting African Americans because it was protective against mosquito-borne illnesses for those of African descent. That is about 4 million people in the US and about 300 million people worldwide being affected. In a study with Army recruits during basic training, it was found that there is a 37-fold greater relative risk of sudden death. This led to the NCAA mandating that all athletes, regardless of division and race, be screened for the sickle cell trait in 2013. The reports of the testing must also be reported directly to the coach and trainer without consent from the athlete, and although the athlete can opt out of the screening, he or she must sign a legal waiver releasing the university of any liability. Obviously, those that are for the sickle cell trait testing say that it is not only ethical on a racial standpoint to test all athletes instead of just African American ones, but also ethical on a health standpoint to eliminate possible health hazards that could conceivably be prevalent for all athletes. Reporting results directly to the coach and trainer also helps athletes in the long run by making the coach aware of the possible outcomes of strenuous workouts and help them create a better regimen for all members of the team. On the flip side, many argue that testing for all athletes is not only a waste of time and resources, but also rather unnecessary for people that are not of African descent or playing certain sports. Coaches should be attenuating to the needs of their athletes and recognizing their struggles regardless of their medical conditions. Additionally, coaches may be less willing to recruit or put players in games knowing that they may be held liable for the athlete's sickle cell trait status. This is not even mentioning the fact that the entire test is a blatant violation of consent to release medical records. So after knowing all these facts, what are your opinions on sickle cell trait testing for NCAA athletes?
I think the fact that people have died, there's in the Navy they have a rule which is procedures written in blood, and that just means that like when you have a rule and people are like, why does this rule exist? Most of the time it's because someone died, and I think that we should be respectful of the fact that people have died.
No, I still think it's an important test to have done, just for health purposes. I don't know. I understand that it could be considered like a privacy violation, but kind of at what cost? I think it's still kind of worth it for the safety of the athlete.
I think it's ethical to test for them and probably wise, but I don't think medical records should be released without the consent of athletes.
The positives to testing are, I guess, necessary, and I guess in the long run, it's, I don't know, the whole argument of coaches maybe not putting people in for a game. It's athletics. It's I think that's a life is more important than like whether or not an athlete plays in, you know, a match or whatever.
I obviously agree that it would be unethical to test some groups over another. I don't know, it's hard because it feels like such a huge safety concern and like something that coaches should know about, but also like I am pretty privy to like if I go to Gannett, like I don't release my records to my coach. Like I want to be able to decide whether or not I'm going to like give them that information.
I don't think that it's necessary to test people of non-African American descent, unless maybe there's like, maybe I had someone at some point. It's like, okay, yeah, then test them, unless you can be sure that you've never had.
I still believe that it's a good thing to test for, because if it has that strong of a chance of being fatal, then it's something you should be aware of. Mandatory, I guess it's hard for me to say that, but I would definitely agree. I would definitely think that it's something that people should look out for.
Unless you're looking for something else, because like you don't test a dude for pregnancy. It's just not going to happen. It's just like waste of resources. Don't do it.
But if it's still happening, like I feel like it's more prevalent in African Americans, but it still could be an issue for another person who is not of African American descent, and then it would be, I mean, it could be really serious.
If you had it, it's just really, really, really not going to happen if you're not of African descent.
Okay, so do you think giving athletes the ability to consent to releasing their status would present a greater hazard to their health? And why is that?
Because I believe some people will prioritize their athletic status or just playing time in general over their own health. And I think, after the information you've given me about the fact that this could lead to sudden death, if that's just so extreme, I don't think it would be worth it for anyone.
I think ideally I would like give them that choice, but also, it sounds dangerous. Because I know a lot of people who do whatever it takes to get them.
I mean, I think it does pose that risk that someone with sickle cell anemia would withhold that information from their coaches. But in the end, it's their body, it's their health, and as long as they're a legal adult, capable, with cognitive capabilities to make their own, rational decisions, then I think it's their right and our moral obligation to give them that freedom.
If someone has this disease and they don't tell somebody, then they're putting themselves at a major risk, and they could be a liability to whatever institution that they're a part of.
I think that the trainer should have to know, in case there is an emergency, that they can react to that. But if they are choosing to withhold it from all of the staff, then like a lot of athletes are they're either embarrassed or they're just no, they're gonna baby me or something, and it's well, maybe they should
For your safety.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of important.
at least the trainer.
What do you think could have been done differently then?
I don't know, because I would say that getting the consent of people to give that information to their coach, but also then you don't want people who have the trait or the full-on disease not consenting to give that information to their coach. Do you know what I mean?
I guess something they could do differently is give the athlete the right to consent to whether or not they want the information given to their coaches and their trainers. That way they have just a little more control over the situation.
I guess maybe not make it mandatory then. I guess just sort of have that sort of information, that liability disclosed.
I definitely think that it should not be legal to release that information without a patient's consent, assuming that patient, again, is fully informed and is a legal adult.
As college athletes, there are lots of things we're required to do without really giving consent. So I don't really see how a sickle cell test is different than any other meetings we're required to go to. So
Would you like to see any changes in these policies, or do you think they're good as they are then?
Is what I said what's currently, then I don't think anything needs to change.
Personally, I think they're good as they are. However, I could see a lot of people wanting them to be changed, considering they don't have any say in whether or not this information is revealed. Personally, I think it's for the better, though, that if this information is made public, if this information is given to those who are in charge of your health, I think that's good.
Ideally, I guess you would have people be able to give consent, but I do think that for the safety of athletes, I guess it does kind of have to be the way that it is.
How do you think it will affect policies for other genetic diseases in the future?
I mean, it depends on the disease and the severity of it and who is able to get it and all of that stuff, too.
I guess this policy could bring into the question of consent and the right of the athlete to share their medical history. But like I said, I don't know that it's necessarily the worst thing for the athlete's medical history to be shared with their coaches.
I think it sets a precedence of it's okay for us to mandate that you share information to staff members, which is a little dangerous, in terms of HIV status, because I could see that being somewhere where they are required to tell a staff member, there could be a policy put in place for that.
I guess your genetic information is fair game to everyone, and that's kind of scary, So any sort of, my DNA, my genetic code is kind of available for anyone to kind of know and sort of make decisions over against my will. So I ain't about that.
If they just decide, oh, well, now any dangerous disease the coach should know about just in case, and it's like, that could cause problems.
I think if there's a genetic disease that could potentially result in a high chance of death, then the coaches should know that this person has it. Period. I mean, it's just safer.
I could see it being used to justify why information should be revealed to the public. However, I think this is a very specific situation where your life is potentially at risk. So
It's hard to make a blanket statement about different genetic diseases, because I feel like I said earlier, it depends on what results of having a certain genetic diseases. Like if your only symptom would be like dizziness or something, okay, fine, require consent.
I mean, I guess it would end up following the same procedure, which makes me feel kind of iffy because, like, I don't know, I don't want everyone to have my genome and everything about me, and that feels a little much. I don't know, it's so hard to, like, figure out the line between, like, keeping people safe and, like, letting people have a right to their own privacy. But I guess I would assume it would follow the same procedures in the future, which feels a little
Maybe it's life-threatening things, That's really what I'm concerned about.
I don't know what it takes to pass that sort of legislation, so I can't really speak, and I don't know whether it's controversial amongst those people. I mean, do I think that in the future it should be different? Yes, I think that student or athletes, adults should have consent to release their own medical records regardless of what disease it is. Do I think it will change? That I don't know, because I don't know who makes the decision and I don't know what they think. So
Cool. That's about it.